My name is Lauren Hayes, and I am 31 years old. 5 years ago, my mom called me 3 days before Thanksgiving and said 7 words that cracked my life right down the middle. Do not come home this year, Lauren. No explanation. No apology. Just a flat sentence that sounded like a locked door. I was standing in my tiny apartment in Chicago when the call came in. It was November 21st, and I had already packed my suitcase halfway. I had a cinnamon candle burning on the counter, trying to convince myself I still loved the holidays. I had my plane ticket pulled up on my laptop. Non-refundable, of course. When my mom's name popped up on my screen, I smiled like an idiot. For a second, I forgot how complicated we were. I forgot how every holiday came with rules and landmines and the kind of tension you can taste in the air. Hey, Mom, I said. I was just about to head out and grab Lauren, she cut in. Her voice was cold. Not angry. Not emotional. Just cold. I stopped mid-sentence. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like my whole body tilted. What is it? I asked. Is Dad okay? Your father is fine, she said. There was a pause. A long one. Like she was choosing her words carefully, but not because she cared about my feelings. More like she was choosing the fastest way to get the conversation over with. Listen, she said. I have been thinking, and you should not come home this year. I actually laughed. A quick little sound that came out of pure confusion. What do you mean I should not come home? I said. It is Thanksgiving. Another pause. Your sister does not want drama, my mom said. There it was. The phrase that had followed me my whole life like a shadow. Drama. Like I was a storm cloud that ruined every sunny day just by existing. My sister's name is Brooke. She is 2 years older than me, and somehow, my entire family has spent decades treating her like the main character and me like an optional side plot. Brooke is pregnant again, Mom continued. She is exhausted, and she does not need stress. I gripped my phone tighter. Drama, I repeated. What drama? I have not even talked to Brooke in months. Exactly, my mom snapped. And let us keep it that way. My throat went tight. I could feel my face getting hot. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I have not done anything. I asked her last year why I was not invited to her baby shower. That is not drama. That is a question. She exhaled like I was a child whining about not getting candy. Lauren, you always make everything about you. I stared at my kitchen window. Outside, the sky was the color of dirty snow. Cars slid past on wet streets. People were out there buying groceries, planning menus, calling relatives, doing normal holiday things. And my mom was telling me I was not welcome. I already bought my ticket, I said. Then get a refund, she replied. It is non-refundable, I said. That is not my problem, she said. Brooke is pregnant. She does not need stress. You understand, right? The line went dead. No goodbye. No love you. No see you soon. Just silence. I stood there with my phone still pressed to my ear like I could force the call back to life through sheer willpower. Then I lowered it and stared at the screen until it went dark. I wish I could tell you that was the first time my family made me feel like I did not belong. But it was just the first time they said it out loud in a way I could not ignore. I sat on the edge of my couch and looked at my suitcase. Half packed. Like I had been living in this weird in-between place my whole life, never fully in, never fully out. My brain started replaying old memories like it was trying to prove a point. My high school graduation. I remember walking across the stage, smiling so hard my cheeks hurt. I remember scanning the crowd for my parents. I saw them, but they were both looking down at their phones. Brooke had texted that she was upset because her boyfriend at the time had not posted about her on social media. My mom later told me they were just trying to calm her down. Do not be selfish, Lauren. Your sister was having a hard day. Then my 21st birthday. I wanted something simple. Dinner. A cake. Maybe a stupid little toast. But Brooke had broken up with someone again, and my mom insisted we cancel because Brooke needed a girls' night. I spent my birthday eating takeout alone, watching a movie I did not even like. Stop being dramatic, my mom had said when I called her crying. You know your sister needs more support than you do. Support. That word always meant Brooke. When I moved to Chicago after college, I thought distance might help. I thought maybe if I was not physically around, would stop feeling like the leftover child. But the truth was, even from 1,000 miles away, I still kept trying. I still called. I still sent gifts for Brooke's kids. I still mailed Christmas cards with pictures of me smiling like I had a real family behind me. And here I was. 26 years old at the time. Getting told not to come home for Thanksgiving because my sister did not want drama. I called my dad. I do not know why. Hope is a stubborn thing. The phone rang 4 times before he answered. Hey, kiddo, he said. His voice was cautious, like he already knew what I was about to ask and did not want to be involved. Did Mom tell you? I asked. Silence. Then the sound of a TV in the background. Probably football. She mentioned it, he said. And you are okay with it? I asked. You think it is normal to tell your daughter not to come home for Thanksgiving? Lauren, he sighed. You know how your mother is. I felt something inside me snap, but quietly. So you are not going to say anything? I asked. Not even once. He hesitated. She is just trying to keep the peace, he said. By excluding me, I said. It is not like that, he replied. Then what is it like, Dad? I said. Tell me. Because it feels like you are choosing Brooke again. More silence. I could picture him sitting in his recliner, shoulders slumped, letting life happen around him while he stayed passive and safe. Do you want me there? I asked. 5 seconds passed. 10. Then he cleared his throat. I think it is better if you listen to your mother this year, he said. Something in my chest went hollow. Okay, Dad, I said. Lauren, do not be like that. I hung up. He did not call back. I sat in my apartment as the afternoon light faded. The candle on my counter burned down low, the scent turning sharp and bitter. I watched my suitcase like it was a symbol of how stupid I had been to think I had a place to go. Then, as the sky outside turned darker, something else settled in me too. Not sadness. Not rage. A decision. If I was not welcome at their table, I would build my own. Thanksgiving morning came cold and gray. I woke up to the sound of my neighbors laughing in the hallway, arms full of casserole dishes and pies. I made coffee and stared at my phone. No messages. No happy Thanksgiving. Nothing. Around noon, I made the mistake of opening Instagram. Brooke had posted a photo of their dining room table in Indiana. My mom and dad smiling. Brooke glowing with her pregnancy. Her husband, Matt, holding their toddler. Everyone looked warm and safe and loved. The caption said, grateful for the people who matter most. I zoomed in without meaning to. 4 adults. 1 kid. 5 chairs. There was no empty seat. They did not just exclude me. They erased me. I shut my phone off and stared at the ceiling. For a minute, I thought about spending the day in bed. About ordering delivery and letting the loneliness swallow me whole. But then I sat up. No. Not today. If I was going to be alone, I was at least going to eat real food somewhere with lights on. I grabbed my coat, wrapped a scarf around my neck, and stepped out into the Chicago cold. I had no idea that friends clinking glasses and laughing like the world hadn't ever hurt them. I tried not to stare, but it was impossible not to notice what I didn't have. The hostess stopped near the back, beside a big group that had pushed 2 tables together. She pointed at a tiny 2-top squeezed into a corner near the kitchen doors. "Here you go," she said. I sat down, my back facing the wall like I was in timeout. The table next to me was the big group. 3 generations, it looked like. An older couple at the head of the table, probably late 60s. A middle-aged man and woman beside them. 2 kids. And a younger guy, maybe early 30s, leaning back in his chair, telling a story that had everyone laughing. They were loud, but not in an annoying way. In a comfortable way. Like they belonged together and didn't have to be careful with each other. They passed food without asking. They interrupted each other without anyone getting offended. The kids climbed onto laps. The older man carved turkey like he'd done it 100 times. I watched them without meaning to. It was like looking through a window at the life I'd always wanted. A server came by with a bread basket and a glass of water. "Happy Thanksgiving," she said, voice bright. "Can I start you with something to drink?" "Just water is fine," I said. She nodded, then offered the Thanksgiving prix-fixe menu like she'd done it all day. I ordered the turkey dinner, because what else was I going to do? It felt symbolic, like I had to prove I was still participating in the holiday even if my own family didn't want me. When the server walked away, I sat there staring at my hands. I kept thinking about my mom's voice. "Do not come home this year." It wasn't just rejection. It was the way she said it, like it was obvious. Like I should have expected it. Like my presence was a problem that needed to be managed. The kitchen doors swung open behind me every few minutes, letting out bursts of heat and the sharp sound of plates clattering. Every time it happened, I flinched a little, because my nerves were already stretched thin. The family next to me kept laughing. The older woman had silver hair pulled into a neat bun and wore a green sweater with tiny embroidered snowflakes. She had a face that looked kind even when she wasn't smiling. The older man beside her had a deep laugh and kept making the kids giggle with little side comments. I couldn't stop listening. The younger guy, the one around my age, kept teasing the older man. "You are not allowed to tell the cranberry sauce story again," he said. "The cranberry sauce story is a classic," the older man argued. "It is a crime," the younger guy said, shaking his head. The whole table laughed again. I felt something ache inside my chest. Not jealousy exactly. More like grief. Like I was mourning a life I never got to have. My food arrived. It looked perfect. Golden turkey slices. Mashed potatoes with gravy. Green beans. Stuffing. Cranberry sauce shaped like it came out of a can, but somehow that made it feel more authentic. The plate was steaming. I picked up my fork and tried to eat. I took one bite. Nothing. It tasted like cardboard. Not because the food was bad. Because my mouth was numb from holding back everything I didn't want to feel. I stared down at my plate and suddenly, without warning, tears blurred my vision. I blinked hard, trying to stop them. Not here. Not now. Not in public. But the more I tried to swallow it down, the worse it got. My chest started shaking. I pressed my napkin to my face, pretending I was wiping my mouth. My shoulders trembled. I turned my head toward the wall, hoping the shadows would hide me. Then I heard a chair scrape gently beside me. "Honey." The voice was soft. Warm. Concerned. I froze. I looked up. The silver-haired woman from the table next to me was standing beside my little corner table, holding her napkin in one hand like she'd gotten up in the middle of dinner without thinking twice. Her eyes were kind, but not pitying. She looked at me like I was a person, not a sad story. Are you okay? She asked. I swallowed hard. I'm fine, I said automatically. Just allergies. She lifted one eyebrow, not mean, just honest. Allergies do not usually make someone cry into their mashed potatoes on Thanksgiving. A weird sound escaped me, half laugh, half sob. I guess I'm not hiding it very well. Not to someone paying attention, she said gently. She glanced back at her table, then back at me. My name is Margaret, she said. And no one should be alone today unless they want to be. I shook my head fast. Oh, no, I said. I don't want to intrude. Really? I'm okay. Margaret smiled, like she'd heard that line before. You are not intruding, she said. I am inviting you. There is a difference. I looked over at her family. The older man was watching us with a curious expression. The younger guy had stopped talking and was looking at me too, his face open and calm, not judgmental. The middle-aged woman gave a small encouraging nod, like she was saying it's okay. Margaret leaned a little closer. My husband tells the worst jokes in the world, she said quietly. My son tries to start debates about everything. And my grandkids are basically tiny tornadoes. If you join us, you'll be doing yourself a favor. You will feel less awkward than I do listening to the same turkey jokes every year. I let out a small laugh, the first real one all day. The older man called over. She won't take no for an answer, he said. Trust me, 45 years, and I have never won an argument. The younger guy added, smiling. It's true. We've all tried. She's undefeated. I looked down at my lonely table. My untouched plate. My damp napkin. Then I looked back at Margaret. Okay, I heard myself say. Her face lit up. Good, she said. Come on. She placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, not pushing, just guiding. Like she was reminding me I wasn't made of glass. I stood up, legs shaky, and followed her to the big table. The moment I got there, everything shifted. Someone pulled out a chair like they'd been expecting me. The middle-aged man slid a plate toward me. The kid scooted over without being asked. Margaret sat me between her and the younger guy. Everyone, this is Lauren, Margaret announced. She's joining us for dinner. The older man stood slightly and offered his hand. I'm Frank, he said. Happy Thanksgiving, Lauren. I shook his hand. Happy Thanksgiving, I said, voice small. The middle-aged man smiled. I'm David. This is my wife, Melissa. And these are our kids, Sophie and Ben. Sophie, who looked about 9, waved. Hi, Lauren. Ben, maybe 6, stared at me like I was an alien. Do you like pie? He asked seriously. I blinked. Yes, I said. Good, he nodded like that settled everything. The younger guy beside me leaned in slightly. I'm Ethan, he said. Welcome to the chaos. His voice was warm and easy. Like he wasn't trying too hard. Like kindness was normal for him. I sat down slowly, still not fully believing this was happening. Margaret poured me a glass of wine like I belonged there. Eat, she said. And breathe. Frank raised his glass. To new friends, he said. The ones we didn't know we needed. Everyone lifted their glasses, even the kids with their soda cups. To new friends, they echoed. I lifted mine too. My throat tightened again, but this time it wasn't loneliness. It was something else. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Belonging. And I had no idea yet, not even a hint, that this table would become my home. Dinner with them felt unreal in the best way. Within 5 minutes, Melissa had passed me the mashed potatoes like she'd known me for years. Sophie was showing me a drawing she'd made at school. Ben kept asking questions like he was interviewing me for a job. What's your favorite color? Do you have a dog? Do you know how to cook turkey? Do you like movies? I nodded fast. Yeah, I said. This is just really nice. Margaret leaned in. Nice is good, she said. But you don't have to pretend you're fine if you're not. Her voice was gentle, but firm. Like she wasn't going to let me hide behind fake smiles. I stared at my plate. I'm okay, I repeated, but my voice sounded thinner this time. Margaret took a sip of wine. Lauren, she said. You don't cry alone in a restaurant unless something happened. Frank looked over. Everything all right, kiddo? He asked. The word kiddo made my chest ache. My dad used to call me that when I was little, before he got too tired to defend me. I hesitated. I didn't want to dump my whole life on these strangers. I didn't want to be the sad girl at their holiday table. But Margaret waited. Patient. No judgment. So I told them the truth, in the smallest way I could. My mom told me not to come home, I said. Melissa's face fell immediately. What? She asked. Why? I swallowed. My sister is pregnant, I said. She didn't want drama. Ethan's eyebrows shot up. Drama, he repeated. I nodded. Apparently me existing counts as stress. Frank leaned back, his jaw tight. That's not right, he said. Margaret didn't look surprised. She looked like she was putting puzzle pieces together. How long has it been like that? She asked. I tried to laugh it off. It's fine, I said quickly. It's not a big deal. It's just. But the words wouldn't come. Because it was a big deal. It had been a big deal my whole life. Ethan didn't speak, but he looked at me like he wanted to. Like he was holding back a whole paragraph. Margaret reached over and placed her hand lightly on my forearm. Can I tell you something? She asked. I nodded. I spent 30 years working as a counselor at a family services center, she said. I've seen a lot of families. The happy ones, the messy ones, the ones that look perfect until you get behind the curtain. I blinked. You were a counselor. Retired, she said. And I learned something the hard way. The people who accuse you of being dramatic are usually the ones causing the drama. They just need someone else to carry it. My eyes stung. I didn't know what to say. Because I had never heard an adult say that about my family. My whole life, the story had been that I was the problem. Lauren is too sensitive. Lauren takes things personally. Lauren makes everything harder than it needs to be. Lauren cannot just let things go. Hearing Margaret say it wasn't me felt like someone loosening a tight knot in my ribs. Frank nodded slowly. Sounds like you've been their scapegoat, he said. The word landed heavy. Scapegoat. It fit too well. Ethan finally spoke. You don't deserve that, he said. Nobody does. I looked down fast, because if I looked at him too long, I was going to cry again. And I didn't want to cry at their table. Not when they were being so kind. Margaret squeezed my arm once, then pulled her hand back like she didn't want to overwhelm me. You're safe here tonight, she said. Safe. That word made my throat close. After dinner, the kids disappeared under the table for some reason that made sense only to children. David and Frank started arguing about the bears like their lives depended on it. Melissa rolled her eyes and refilled everyone's drinks. Pie came out. Apple, pumpkin, pecan. Ben was right. They did have pie. Margaret slid a slice of pumpkin toward me like it was a gift. Eat, she said again. You're too skinny. I laughed, wiping at my eyes. I promise I eat, I said. Ethan smirked. Tonight you do, he said. When the check came, I reached for my wallet automatically. No, Frank said instantly. I can pay for my own dinner, I protested. Frank looked offended. Absolutely not, he said. You're our guest. I'm not your guest, I said. I'm a stranger you adopted an hour ago. Margaret smiled. That's exactly what you are, she said. And we're not charging you for the privilege. David laughed. Mom's right, he said. We do this sometimes. Sometimes, I repeated. Melissa nodded. New people, lonely people, friends of friends, co-workers who can't travel, she said. If you're a good person and you need a place to sit, we make room. My eyes burned again. How do you do that? I asked before I could stop myself. How do you just make room? Ethan finished. I shrugged, embarrassed. Yeah. He looked at me for a second, then said quietly. Because everyone deserves to belong somewhere. The restaurant started emptying out as families headed home. Coats went on. Kids got carried out half asleep. Someone at a nearby table hugged their server goodbye like they were old friends. When we stood up to leave, Margaret touched my elbow. Wait, she said. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small card. It was simple. Cream-colored. Neat black text. Margaret Caldwell. Family Services Counselor, retired. Phone number. Address in Evanston. If you ever need to talk, she said, call me. I stared at the card. You don't even know me, I said. Margaret tilted her head. I know enough, she replied. Frank stepped closer, pulling on his gloves. We do Sunday dinners, he said. Every week. You're welcome to join anytime. I shook my head automatically. That's really kind, but I can't just. Yes you can, Melissa said, cutting me off with a smile. You can just show up. We'll feed you. Ben nodded seriously. And we have pie sometimes, he added. Sophie whispered loudly, Ben, stop talking about pie. Ethan looked at me. Come, he said. It's not weird. I mean it's a little weird. But it's our kind of weird. I laughed again, surprised at how easy it was now. Margaret slipped her arm through mine as we walked toward the door. Family isn't blood, Lauren, she said softly. It's who shows up. Outside, the cold air slapped my cheeks. Snowflakes were drifting down under the streetlights. I stood on the sidewalk holding a business card from a woman I'd met 3 hours ago, and an invitation I didn't know how to accept. But I heard myself say it anyway. Okay, I said. Maybe I'll come by. Margaret smiled like she knew I would. Good, she said. We'll save you a seat. I walked back to my apartment that night with a full stomach and a strange feeling in my chest. It wasn't happiness exactly. It was hope. And I hadn't felt that in a long time. I did not go to Sunday dinner the first week. Or the second. I told myself it was because I did not want to impose. Because I was busy. Because I needed time. But the truth was simpler. I was scared. It felt too good. Too warm. Too easy. And my brain had learned that anything good could be taken away. Margaret called me the following Tuesday. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a guilty way. Just a normal call, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Hi, Lauren, she said. Just checking in. How are you holding up? I stared at my laptop screen, pretending to work. I'm okay, I lied. Margaret hummed. That sounds like a lie, she said. I laughed softly. Maybe a little, I admitted. She did not push. She just kept her voice steady. Sunday dinner is at 5, she said. No pressure. But if you want a place to be, you're welcome. I said thank you. I said I would think about it. When Sunday came, I spent the entire afternoon pacing my apartment like a trapped animal. I changed my outfit 3 times. I wiped down my kitchen counter even though nobody was coming over. I stood by the window and watched. It smells like Frank is trying to burn something again. From inside, Frank's voice called out, I heard that. Margaret laughed and guided me in. The warmth hit me immediately. Not just heat, but energy. Sound. Life. The living room had family photos everywhere. Kids at Halloween. Beach trips. Christmas mornings. A dog that looked like it had been loved into old age. Melissa appeared from the kitchen holding a dish towel. Lauren, she said. You made it. She smiled like she was genuinely happy to see me. Ethan was behind her, carrying a stack of plates. Hey, he said. Glad you came. I nodded, suddenly awkward again. Thanks for inviting me, I said. Ben ran in from somewhere and stopped dead in front of me. You came, he said, eyes wide. I did, I said, smiling. Sophie walked in behind him, holding her phone. Ben, don't be weird, she whispered, then looked at me. Hi, Lauren. Hi, I said. David appeared, wiping his hands. Welcome, he said. We're doing pot roast tonight. Mom insisted. She said turkey trauma is real. Margaret shot him a look. I did not say trauma, she corrected. Frank walked in from the dining room holding a bottle of wine like a trophy. I did say pot roast, he announced. And I was right. He looked at me. Lauren, right. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday, I said, laughing. They moved around me like I belonged there. Like I was not a guest who needed to be handled carefully. They were just a family doing dinner, and somehow, I was included. I sat at their dining table with a plate in front of me and a glass of wine I did not ask for. Margaret kept putting food on my plate like she was feeding me back to life. Eat, she said again. I'm eating, I promised. Ethan leaned over. She's going to keep saying it, he warned me. You might as well accept your fate. I smiled. I can handle it, I said. Frank raised his fork. So, Lauren, he said. Tell us about you. What do you do? I hesitated, then answered. I'm a graphic designer, I said. Mostly freelance right now. Branding, websites, that kind of thing. Melissa's eyes lit up. That's so cool, she said. I can barely make a PowerPoint look decent. Sophie groaned. Mom, you literally used Comic Sans last week. Melissa shrugged. It's fun. Ethan looked horrified. Comic Sans is a crime, he said. Frank nodded solemnly. Straight to jail, he agreed. Everyone laughed. And I laughed too. It was so simple. So normal. But it felt like stepping into a world I did not know existed. After dinner, Ben asked if I wanted to see his Lego city. Sophie rolled her eyes but secretly seemed proud of it. David offered me coffee. Melissa brought out brownies like it was a casual thing to have dessert every Sunday. Frank tried to teach me chess at the kitchen table and immediately got annoyed when I beat him by accident. Beginner's luck, he said. Ethan watched from the counter. She's smarter than you, Dad, he said. Frank pointed at him. No commentary from the peanut gallery. Margaret sat in her favorite chair with a blanket over her knees, watching all of it like she was collecting moments. At one point, I caught her looking at me with a soft expression. What? I asked. Nothing, she said. Just happy you're here. My throat tightened again. Me too, I said quietly. When it was time to leave, I stood by the door putting my coat on. I expected the goodbye to feel like a polite ending. Instead, Margaret hugged me again. Same time next week, she said. I blinked. Next week, I repeated. She smiled. If you want to, she said. But yes. Next week. Frank waved from the kitchen. Drive safe, kiddo. Melissa called out. Text me when you get home. Ethan walked me to my car. It was cold outside. The street was quiet. He shoved his hands in his pockets. I'm glad you came, he said again. I nodded, my breath fogging in the air. Me too, I said. He hesitated, then said softly. You know you don't have to earn a seat here, right? My chest ached. I don't know how to not try, I admitted. Ethan gave me a small smile. We'll teach you, he said. I drove home with the kind of warmth that doesn't come from food. It came from being wanted. And over the next few months, Sunday dinners stopped feeling like something I was borrowing. They started feeling like mine. By January, I was there almost every Sunday. Not because they pressured me. They never did. But because the week felt incomplete without it. Like my life had been missing a chapter and suddenly someone handed it to me, already written in warm light and laughter and the smell of food in the oven. The weird part was how fast it became normal. Ben started saving me a seat without being asked. Sophie started texting me random memes like we were sisters. Melissa asked my opinion on paint colors when they talked about redecorating the hallway. David offered to look at my car when it made a strange noise. Frank kept insisting I needed to learn chess properly, which meant he kept losing and calling it practice. Margaret, somehow, was the quiet center of all of it. She remembered the little things. She remembered I hated olives. She remembered I liked my coffee with cream but no sugar. She remembered the name of my boss from an old freelance contract I complained about one time. And every time I walked through that front door, she looked up like she had been waiting. There you are, she would say. Like my presence mattered. That was the thing that still felt unreal. I mattered. One Sunday in February, after dinner, I was helping Melissa rinse plates in the kitchen. The dishwasher was running. The kids were in the living room arguing about a video game. Frank and David were watching sports like it was a sacred ritual. Margaret sat at the table with a cup of tea. She watched me for a minute, then said, "Have you heard from your parents?" The question was gentle, but it still hit like a punch. I kept my eyes on the plates. "No," I said. "Not even a text?" she asked. I shook my head. "Nothing." Melissa glanced at me, her mouth tightening. "That's awful," she said quietly. I shrugged like it didn't matter. "It's fine," I said. "I'm used to it." Margaret's voice softened. "Lauren," she said. "Being used to something doesn't mean it's okay." I swallowed hard. I didn't know what to say to that. Because part of me still wanted to defend them. Not because they deserved it. Because defending them was what I had always done. It was like a reflex. Like if I admitted they were cruel, then I had to admit my childhood was built on something broken. Margaret sipped her tea. "Do you want to reach out to them?" she asked. I paused. The truth was complicated. Sometimes, late at night, I would stare at my phone and think about texting my mom. Something simple. "Happy New Year. Hope you're doing well." Just a little hook thrown into the ocean to see if she would bite. But then I would remember the phone call. "Do not come home this year." And I would remember my dad's silence. "I think it's better if you listen to your mother." And something in me would go cold again. "No," I said finally. "I don't." Margaret nodded like she understood. "That's okay," she said. "You're allowed to protect your peace." Protect your peace. I repeated it in my head like it was a foreign language. That night, when I got home, I sat on my couch with my laptop open, pretending to work, but really I was thinking about what Margaret said. I was allowed to protect my peace. I had never been told that. My whole life, peace meant everyone else being comfortable. Peace meant Brooke getting what she wanted. Peace meant my mom avoiding conflict. Peace meant my dad staying quiet. Peace never meant me. Then spring came. I knew it, he said. I knew you were secretly a holiday person. I'm not, I said quickly. You just like cozy things, he said. It's okay. You can admit it. I felt my face warm. He smiled, and something about that smile made my stomach flip. I looked away fast. It was confusing. Because I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't trying to date. I was still learning how to breathe without my family's approval sitting on my chest. But with Ethan, I didn't feel pressured. I felt safe. A few weeks later, I got sick. Not hospital sick. Just the kind of miserable cold that makes you feel like your bones are made of wet sand. I was in bed with tissues everywhere, hair in a messy bun, watching reruns of a show I didn't care about because I couldn't focus on anything else. My phone buzzed. Ethan. You alive? His text said. Barely, I typed back. 5 minutes later, my doorbell rang. I stared at it like it was a threat. Then I shuffled to the door in sweatpants and opened it. Ethan stood there holding a grocery bag. What are you doing here? I croaked. He held up the bag. Soup, he said. Tea. Orange juice. And the fancy cough drops that cost too much but actually work. I blinked at him. You didn't have to do that, I said. He shrugged. Your family, he said like it was obvious. That's what we do. The word family hit me so hard I forgot how to breathe for a second. I stepped aside and let him in. He put the bag on my counter and started unpacking it like he owned the place. Sit, he ordered. I sat. He made tea. He heated soup. He handed me a blanket like he'd been doing it for years. Then he sat on the other end of the couch, far enough away to be respectful, close enough to be present. We watched TV in silence for a while. At one point, he glanced over. You okay? He asked. I nodded. Yeah, I said. I stopped. Because the truth was, I wasn't just sick. I was overwhelmed. No one had ever taken care of me like this without making it feel like a burden. Ethan's voice softened. You don't have to say it, he said. I get it. My eyes filled with tears, and I hated myself for it. Stop crying, I whispered. Ethan shook his head. No, he said. Cry if you need to. You're allowed. Allowed. That word again. I wiped my face and let myself breathe. And somewhere between the soup and the tea and the quiet way he stayed, I realized something terrifying. I didn't just like being around Ethan. I trusted him. And trust, for me, was the most dangerous feeling in the world. Because trust meant I could get hurt. But it also meant I could finally be loved. Summer came fast. Chicago's summers are loud and bright and full of people who act like winter never happened. Street patios packed with laughter. Music floating out of open windows. The whole city smells like sunscreen and hot pavement and grilled food. And somehow, without me noticing when it happened, Ethan became part of my everyday life. Not just Sundays. He was the person who sent me a picture of a weird cloud shaped like a dinosaur. The person who remembered I liked the corner table at my favorite coffee shop. The person who showed up with tacos when I had a deadline and hadn't eaten since breakfast. One Friday night, I was sitting on my floor surrounded by design drafts, my laptop open, my brain fried. I had been staring at the same logo for so long I started to hate every letter of the alphabet. My phone buzzed. Ethan. Are you still alive or did the fonts finally win? I stared at the text, then typed back. If I die, delete my browser history. 2 minutes later, he replied. Too late. I already know you still have a pumpkin candle. I laughed out loud. Then I realized I wasn't laughing like someone trying to survive. I was laughing like someone happy. That scared me more than anything. Because happiness felt temporary. Like a chair you sit in too carefully because you're sure it will break. That weekend, I was at the Caldwell house again. Sunday dinner. Pot roast. Frank's chest bored out like it was a threat. Ben building something loud with plastic bricks. Sophie complaining about homework. Melissa making a salad and pretending she wasn't offended that nobody ate it. It was normal. It was safe. After dinner, while everyone else was in the living room, Margaret found me in the kitchen wiping down the counter. "You've been smiling a lot lately," she said. I froze mid-wipe. "Have I?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Margaret gave me a look. "Yes," she said. "And I'm happy to see it." I swallowed. "It's nothing," I said quickly. Margaret leaned against the counter. "Lauren," she said, "I'm going to say something and I need you to hear it." I nodded slowly. "You are allowed to have good things," she said. "You are allowed to be loved without earning it. And you are allowed to let yourself want that." My throat tightened. "Margaret," I whispered. She touched my hand. "I'm not pushing you," she said. "I'm just reminding you. You don't have to stay in survival mode forever." I didn't answer, because if I did, I would cry again. So I just nodded. Later that night, Ethan walked me to my car like he usually did. The street was quiet. Fireflies flickered near the bushes. The air smelled like cut grass. He stood by my driver's side door, hands in his pockets. "You've been quiet," he said. I shrugged. "Just tired," I said. He tilted his head. "Work tired, or brain tired?" he asked. "Brain tired," I admitted. Ethan nodded like he understood. "Want to get ice cream?" he asked. "Not tonight. Another day. Just something fun." My instinct was to say no. Because fun felt dangerous too. But then I remembered Margaret's words. Allowed. I smiled a little. "Yeah," I said. "I'd like that." Ethan's face softened. "Okay," he said. "I'll text you." When I got home, I stood in my apartment with the lights off, staring at my reflection in the dark window. I looked different. Not physically. But something in my eyes had changed. I looked like someone who was starting to believe she deserved a life. 2 weeks later, Ethan and I went to a small ice cream shop near the lake. We sat outside with cones melting too fast, watching kids run around and couples walk by holding hands. Ethan looked at me. "So," he said, serious question. "What?" I asked. "If you could live anywhere in the country, where would it be?" he asked. I blinked. "That's random." He shrugged. "Humor me." I thought for a second. "Somewhere near water," I said. "Somewhere with seasons but not brutal winters. Somewhere that feels like a fresh start." Ethan nodded slowly. "That sounds like you," he said. "What does that mean?" I asked. He smiled. "It means you always wanted peace," he said. "You just didn't know you were allowed to go get it." There it was again. Allowed. I stared at him. "How do you always know what to say?" I asked quietly. Ethan's smile faded into something softer. "Because I see you," he said. My heart did something weird. Like it skipped, then caught up too fast. I looked down at my ice cream cone, suddenly very aware of my hands. I didn't know how to respond to someone saying they saw me. Because my whole life, being seen meant being judged. But Ethan's voice had no judgment in it. Only warmth. Only truth. That night, after he dropped me off, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling for hours. I kept thinking about his words. "I see you." Then, in early fall, something happened that I wasn't prepared for. A message from my sister. Brooke. It popped up on my phone like a ghost. Hey. We were sitting on my couch, eating takeout, a movie paused halfway through because we kept talking over it. My family reached out, I said quietly. Ethan's face changed immediately. Your mom, he asked. And my sister, I said. What did they say, he asked. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. Nothing new, I said. That I'm dramatic. That I'm holding a grudge. That it's not that deep. Ethan's jaw tightened. It is that deep, he said. I looked at him. You don't even know them, I said. Ethan reached over and took my hand. I know you, he said. And I know what you went through. And I know you don't deserve to be pulled back into that. My eyes stung. I'm scared, I admitted. Of what? He asked gently. That if I don't answer, I'm the bad guy, I said. That everyone will believe their version. That I'll be the villain in the story no matter what. Ethan squeezed my hand. Lauren, he said. You were the villain in their story the moment you stopped making their lives easier. I stared at him. Because he was right. I had been the problem because I existed outside their control. Ethan leaned closer. You don't owe them access to you, he said. Not just because they're related. Not after what they did. My voice cracked. I don't know how to do this, I whispered. Ethan's eyes stayed on mine. You already are, he said. You're doing it right now. Then he said something that made my chest go quiet. You're not alone anymore, Lauren. And for the first time, I believed him. The first time Ethan kissed me, it wasn't dramatic. It wasn't fireworks or slow motion or some perfect movie moment. It was a Tuesday. I was standing outside my apartment building holding a bag of groceries, struggling to get my keys out because my fingers were numb from the cold. Ethan had walked me home from dinner. Just a simple dinner, nothing fancy. Burgers and fries at a place near my neighborhood. We were talking about nothing. Something about how Frank still insisted he could beat me at chess even though he absolutely could not. Ethan laughed, hands in his pockets, shoulders relaxed. He stopped walking when we reached my door. I turned to face him. Thanks for coming with me, I said. Always, he replied. There was a pause. Not awkward. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like a question. I looked up at him. He was already looking at me. His expression was soft, almost careful. Lauren, he said. Yeah, I whispered. He hesitated, then stepped closer. If this is too much, tell me, he said. My heart hammered. It's not too much, I said, barely breathing. Ethan's hand came up, slow, like he was giving me time to pull away. He brushed a piece of hair behind my ear. Then he kissed me. Gentle. Warm. Real. I froze for half a second, then melted into it like my body had been waiting. When he pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine. Okay, he murmured. Okay, I breathed. He smiled, and I swear something inside me shifted. Like a door I had kept locked for years cracked open. That night, I didn't sleep much. Not because I was anxious. Because I kept replaying it in my head, trying to convince myself it had happened. Trying to convince myself it was allowed. We didn't rush anything after that. We didn't suddenly become a couple overnight with matching profile pictures and cheesy captions. We just kept showing up. He came over after work and cooked dinner in my tiny kitchen, pretending he wasn't terrible at chopping onions. I went with him to his job site once and watched him talk about building design like it was art. He held my hand when I got overwhelmed in crowded places. I learned that he drank his coffee black and always had gum in his pocket. And every Sunday, we sat at Margaret's table like it was the most normal thing in the world. One night in December, almost exactly 2 years after that first Thanksgiving, Ethan asked me to go somewhere with him. "Just you and me," he said. "Where?" I asked. He smirked. "Trust me," he said. When we pulled up, I felt my stomach drop. Lakeshore Tavern. The same restaurant where Margaret found me crying into my dinner. I stared at the sign like it was a memory made physical. Ethan parked and looked at me. "I know," he said softly. "But I wanted to bring you back here." "Why?" I asked, voice tight. "Because this is where you found us," he said. "And where we found you." My eyes stung. "Ethan," I whispered. He reached over and squeezed my hand. "Come on," he said. "Let's rewrite it." Inside, the restaurant looked the same. Dark wood. Warm lights. Holiday decorations hanging from the ceiling. The smell of turkey and bread and cinnamon. The hostess led us to a booth near the window. When we sat down, I realized my hands were shaking. Ethan noticed. "Hey," he said gently. "You okay?" I nodded, but my throat was tight. "Yeah," I said. "It's just weird being here again." He smiled. "Good weird," he said. We ordered. We talked. We laughed. But Ethan was nervous. I could tell. He kept adjusting his napkin. He kept taking a sip of water and putting the glass down too carefully. His knee bounced under the table. I narrowed my eyes. "What is going on?" I asked. He exhaled. "I've been trying to figure out how to say something," he admitted. My stomach flipped. "Okay," I said slowly. Ethan reached across the table and took my hand. "Lauren," he said. "I know your family hurt you. I know you spent years being treated like you were too much, like you were the problem." I swallowed hard. He continued. "I know you're scared of trusting people who are supposed to love you. Because you learned the hard way that love can be taken away without warning." My eyes filled with tears. Ethan's voice stayed steady. "But I want you to know something," he said. "I'm not going anywhere. I never have. I never will." He took a breath, then reached into his jacket pocket. My heart stopped. He pulled out a small velvet box. "Lauren Hayes," he said, voice trembling slightly. "Will you marry me?" For a second, I couldn't breathe. My brain went blank. All I could see was Ethan's face. The man who brought soup when I was sick. The man who looked at me like I mattered. The man who never once made me feel like I had to earn him. I stared at the ring inside the box. Simple. Elegant. Perfect. Ethan's eyes were shining. "Say something," he whispered. I let out a shaky laugh. "Yes," I said. "Yes, of course." Ethan's shoulders dropped like he'd been holding his breath for a year. He smiled so wide it made my chest ache. He slid the ring onto my finger. And the restaurant erupted in applause. I blinked, startled, realizing people had been watching. Then I looked past Ethan, toward the corner booth. And there they were. Frank and Margaret. Melissa and David. Sophie and Ben. All of them sitting there like they'd been waiting. Margaret was already crying. Frank was grinning like a proud dad. Melissa was holding her phone up to record. Sophie was clapping. Ben looked confused but excited, like he knew something good happened even if he didn't understand weddings yet. Ethan laughed. "Mom couldn't resist," he said. I covered my mouth with my hand. "You all knew," I whispered. Frank raised his glass from across the room. "We had a feeling," he called out. Margaret walked over and hugged me so tight I almost fell out of the booth. "My girl," she whispered. "My girl." Nobody had ever called me that. Not in a way that felt real. When we got back to my apartment that night, the excitement settled into something quieter. I sat on my couch staring at my ring like it might disappear. Ethan sat beside me, his arm around my shoulders. "You okay?" They treated boundaries like betrayal. And the closer the wedding got, the more I felt the storm coming. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't facing it alone. Wedding planning should have been fun. And in a lot of ways, it was. Dress shopping with Melissa and Margaret, tasting cake samples until my stomach hurt, arguing with Ethan about whether we needed a DJ or just a playlist. Picking colors. Looking at venues. Making a Pinterest board like I was a normal bride with a normal family. But every time I got excited, the same thought pulled me back down. Parents of the bride. That line sat in my head like a stone. One night, I was at the Caldwell house, sitting at the dining table long after everyone else had gone to the living room. Frank was cleaning up the last of the dishes. Melissa was helping Ben with a school project. Sophie was on her phone pretending she wasn't listening to anything. Margaret sat across from me with her tea. "You've been thinking hard," she said. I looked up. "Am I that obvious?" I asked. Margaret smiled. "You forget I made a career out of reading people," she said. I let out a slow breath. "It's the invitations," I admitted. "The wedding program. All of it." Margaret's eyes softened. "Tell me," she said. I swallowed. "There's that line," I said. "Parents of the bride. And I can't put my biological parents. I can't. It feels wrong." Margaret nodded. "Because they didn't act like parents," she said simply. My eyes stung. "Yeah," I whispered. Frank came over and leaned on the counter, listening quietly. I kept going. "But I also don't want to disrespect you and Frank," I said. "You've done so much for me. You've been there in ways they never were. But I don't know if I'm allowed to." Margaret's voice was calm. "Allowed," she repeated. I froze. She gave me a look that was almost gentle teasing. "You say that word a lot," she said. I laughed weakly. "Because I don't know the rules," I admitted. "My whole life I've felt like I needed permission to take up space." Margaret nodded slowly. "Lauren," she said, "there are no rules for love. Only choices." I stared at her. Then Frank spoke up. "Kiddo," he said, "we already consider you ours." My throat tightened. "Frank," I whispered. He shrugged like it was obvious. "You show up," he said. "You care. Your family. That's it." I blinked fast, trying not to cry. Margaret reached across the table and touched my hand. "There's something I mentioned to you once," she said. "About making chosen family official." I looked at her, confused. "You said the law recognizes what the heart already knows," I said slowly. Margaret smiled. "Exactly," she said. Frank's expression turned serious. "We've talked about it," he added. My stomach dropped. "Talked about what?" I asked. Margaret took a breath. "Adult adoption," she said gently. The room went quiet. I stared at her like she'd said something impossible. "Adult adoption," I repeated. "It's a real legal process," Margaret said. "It creates a legal parent-child relationship, even when the child is an adult. It can change next of kin status. It can make things official. It can give you the family name if you want it." My heart was pounding. "I didn't even know that was a thing," I whispered. "It is," Margaret said. "And I've helped people through it before." I swallowed hard. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, even though I already knew. Margaret's eyes were steady. "Because if you want it," she said, "you don't have to keep feeling like you're borrowing a place in this family. You can belong in a way nobody can take from you." I stared down at our hands on the table. I could barely breathe. Frank stepped closer. "We don't want to pressure you," he said. "But we love you. And we'd be honored." My voice cracked. "You would do that," I whispered. Margaret smiled, tears already in her eyes. "Lauren," she said, "I invited you to our table that first Thanksgiving because you needed kindness. I had no idea what you'd become to us. But I know now." She squeezed my hand. "You're our daughter," she said. "We were just waiting for you to be ready to believe it." That did it. Tears spilled down my face, hot and unstoppable. I covered my mouth, trying to hold it in, but Margaret stood up and came around the table, pulling me into her arms. I cried against her shoulder like a child. And for the first time in my life, it didn't feel embarrassing. It felt safe. Frank's hand rested on my back, steady and warm. Sophie stood in the doorway, watching with wide eyes. Then she stepped forward and hugged me too, awkward but sincere. "Don't make it weird," she muttered into my hair. I laughed through tears. "Too late," I sniffed. Ben wandered in and stared at us. "What's happening?" he asked. Melissa appeared behind him. "Lauren's getting adopted," she said like it was normal. Ben's eyes got huge. "Like in the movies?" he asked. Margaret pulled back and wiped my cheeks with her hands. "Like in real life," she said. The adoption process took months. Paperwork. Court filings. Background checks. Meetings with an attorney. Forms that made my head spin. But Margaret guided me through every step like it was a ceremony instead of bureaucracy. Frank came to every appointment. Ethan held my hand during every stressful phone call. And somehow, every signature I wrote felt like I was carving my name into something solid. Like I was building a foundation. The day we went to court, I wore a simple dress and tried to act calm. I was not calm. My hands shook as we sat in the courtroom waiting for the judge. Ethan sat beside me, his knee pressed against mine. "You okay?" he whispered. I nodded. "Yeah, I lied." He squeezed my hand. "You don't have to be okay," he said. "Just be here." Margaret sat on my other side, holding a tissue already, because she knew. Frank kept clearing his throat like he was trying not to cry. When the judge called our case, we stood. The judge was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes. She looked at the paperwork, then at me. "Lauren Hayes," she said. "Do you consent to this adoption?" My voice trembled. "Yes, Your Honor," I said. She looked at Frank and Margaret. "Frank Caldwell, Margaret Caldwell, do you consent to adopt Lauren as your daughter?" Frank's voice was rough. "Yes, Your Honor," he said. Margaret's voice shook too. "Yes," she said. The judge smiled. "Then by the authority of this court," she said, "the adoption is granted." She signed the order. The sound of the pen on paper felt louder than it should have. Like a door closing. Like a door opening. Like a life-changing moment squeezed into one small signature. Margaret covered her mouth and cried. Frank wiped his eyes and tried to pretend he wasn't. Ethan leaned over and kissed my forehead. "You did it," he whispered. I did it. I walked out of that courthouse with a new last name. Lauren Caldwell. A new birth certificate would come later. New legal paperwork. New next of kin status. But in my heart, it had already happened years ago at a restaurant table. Now it was official. Now it was permanent. When we sent out wedding invitations, the line I had feared was printed in elegant script. Parents of the bride. Frank and Margaret Caldwell. I stared at it for a long time when the first sample arrived. It looked right. It felt right. And I should have known my biological family would find out. Because nothing stays hidden forever. 3 months before the wedding, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered without thinking. Lauren, my mom's voice said. My blood went cold. We need to talk. I didn't say anything at first. I just held the phone to my ear and listened to my mother breathe like she had every right to be there. Lauren, then, are you serious? Yes, I said. Her voice rose. I am your mother. You were, I said quietly. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my hands shaking, but my chest felt strangely calm. Like I had finally said the truth out loud. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 days later, my mom showed up at my apartment. I was working from home, laptop open, headphones on, trying to finish a design project before a deadline. I had music playing low in the background, and for the first time in weeks, I felt focused. Then the doorbell rang. I ignored it. It rang again. Then again, rapid. Annoyed, I stood up and walked to the door, not even thinking. I opened it. And there she was. My mother stood in the hallway like she owned the space. Her hair was darker than I remembered, freshly dyed. Her coat was expensive. Her expression was the same disappointed look that had haunted my childhood. Lauren, she said. My stomach dropped. Mom, I said, the word tasting wrong. What are you doing here? She pushed past me into my apartment without waiting for permission. What am I doing here? She repeated. What are you doing? Getting married without telling your own family. I closed the door slowly, my heart pounding. We're not doing this, I said. My mom turned, eyes scanning my living room like she was searching for evidence. Her gaze landed on the photos on my bookshelf. Me and Ethan at the lake. Me and Margaret baking cookies. A group picture from last Christmas, all of us squeezed together, laughing. My mom's mouth tightened. Who are these people? She demanded. My family, I said. She spun toward me like I slapped her. I am your family. I met her eyes. You chose not to be, I said. Her face flushed. How dare you? How dare I repeated. You told me not to come home. You didn't call me for years. You didn't check if I was alive. And now you show up acting like you have a claim on me. My mom's voice went icy. You are being cruel. No, I said. I'm being honest. She stepped closer, lowering her voice like she was trying to control the situation. I want an invitation to your wedding, she said. No, I repeated. Her jaw dropped. You cannot do this. I walked to the door and opened it. Yes, I can, I said. You don't get to erase me and then demand a seat at my table. My mom stared at me, breathing hard. For a second, I thought she might cry. Instead, her face twisted into anger. You think those people replace me, she hissed. I didn't answer. Because the truth was, they already had. Not by stealing anything. By showing up. My mom's voice shook. You will regret this, she said. I held the door open. Goodbye, Mom, I said. She stared at me one more second, then stormed out. I closed the door and leaned against it, shaking. My hands were cold. My mouth was dry. But my chest felt clear. Like I had finally chosen myself. That night, Ethan came over and found me sitting on the couch staring at nothing. He sat beside me. What happened? He asked. My mom showed up, I said. Ethan's posture changed instantly. Here, he asked. I nodded. She wanted an invitation. Ethan's jaw tightened. Did she threaten you? Not directly, I said. Just the usual. Guilt. Anger. Acting like I'm the problem. Ethan took my hand. You're not the problem, he said. I looked at him. I know, I whispered. And I meant it. The wedding came faster than I expected. We chose a venue in Northern California, a vineyard outside Sonoma. Rolling hills, endless rows of vines, golden light in the late afternoon. It felt peaceful. Like a place where the past couldn't reach. Margaret cried when we picked the date. Frank insisted on giving a toast at the rehearsal dinner and practiced it 3 times like he was preparing for a speech at the White House. Melissa helped me choose flowers. Sophie came dress shopping with me and pretended she hated it but secretly loved it. Ben asked if there would be cake. Ethan told him yes and Ben decided it was the best day ever. I should have felt only joy. But the closer we got, the more I felt the tension building. Like a storm sitting just beyond the horizon. The morning of the wedding, I stood in the bridal suite looking at myself in the mirror. My dress was simple and elegant. My hair was curled softly. My makeup was natural. I looked like myself, but brighter. Stronger. Margaret stood behind me adjusting my veil. "You look beautiful," she whispered. I turned my head slightly. "Thank you," I said. Frank knocked on the door and called out, "No crying yet. Save it for the vows." Margaret laughed. "Too late," she called back. I looked down at the wedding program sitting on the vanity. I picked it up and read the line again. Parents of the bride. Frank and Margaret Caldwell. Underneath, in smaller text, a line Ethan suggested. The family who chose her. My throat tightened. Margaret saw me looking. "You nervous?" she asked. "About marrying Ethan?" I asked. She smiled. "No," I said. "About my mom." Margaret's expression turned calm and steady. "Whatever happens today," she said, "you are not alone. We will protect you." I swallowed. "I love you, Mom," I said softly. It was the first time I said it out loud to her. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "I love you too, sweetheart," she whispered. My daughter. Outside, guests were arriving. The sun was bright. The vineyard glowed. Ethan was waiting at the altar, nervous and handsome in his suit. It was time. The ceremony was everything I dreamed of. Frank walked me down the aisle, his arm steady, his smile proud. He looked like a father who had waited his whole life for that moment. Ethan's eyes were glassy when he saw me. We said our vows, hands shaking, voices trembling. When Ethan slid the ring onto my finger, something in my chest clicked into place. Like I finally belonged to a life that loved me back. We kissed. The guests cheered. And for a few minutes, the world was perfect. Then, during the reception, a security guard approached me. "Mrs. Caldwell," he said quietly. My stomach dropped. "There are 2 people at the entrance," he continued. "They claim to be your parents." Ethan appeared beside me immediately. "What?" he asked. "My biological parents are here," I said. Ethan's eyes hardened. "I'll handle it." I shook my head. "No," I said. "I will. Because this was my day. And I was done running." I took a slow breath. "Let them in," I said. Ethan looked at me. "Are you sure?" I nodded. "But seat them in the back," I added. "Not near the family." The guard nodded and walked away. A few minutes later, I saw them. My mother and father stood near the edge of the reception, looking around like they were lost. My mom's eyes scanned the room, searching for her place. My dad stood behind her, shoulders slumped, hands in his pockets. They looked like people who expected to be welcomed. They had no idea what was about to happen. The reception was glowing with warm lights and music and the kind of laughter that feels like it belongs in the air forever. People were dancing. Glasses clinked. The photographer moved through the crowd like a quiet shadow capturing joy. I stood near the head table with Ethan's hand in mine, pretending my heart wasn't pounding. Across the room, my biological parents hovered near the back like they didn't know where to stand. My mother kept adjusting her purse strap, chin lifted, eyes sharp. My father looked smaller than I remembered. Older. Tired. My mother grabbed my father's arm, whispering something harsh. My father's face drained too, his eyes fixed on Frank like he was looking at a stranger who had stolen something. My mother pushed forward through the crowd before I could even move. She reached me just as the applause started to fade. Her face was flushed, eyes wild. "What is this?" she hissed. "Who are those people?" I met her gaze evenly. "My parents," I said. Her mouth fell open. "No. I am your mother." "Not legally," I said. Her eyes widened like she couldn't process it. "What did you just say?" I kept my voice calm. "I was adopted," I said. 2 months ago." My mother staggered back half a step. "You cannot just replace us." "I didn't replace you," I said quietly. "You left first." My mother's voice rose, sharp enough that a few guests nearby turned their heads. "We never left you." I held her stare. "You told me not to come home," I said. "You chose my sister every time. You stopped calling. You erased me." Her lips trembled with anger. "You are humiliating me." "Then leave," I said, soft but final. Ethan stepped closer beside me, his presence steady. My mother looked at him like he was part of the betrayal. "This is your fault too," she snapped. Ethan didn't flinch. "No, ma'am," he said calmly. "This is the consequence of your choices." My mother turned back to me. "You think those people are your family now," she said. I nodded once. "They are." My mother's eyes flashed. "This is disgusting," she said. "Family is family." I let out a slow breath. "Family is showing up," I said. "Family is protecting. Family is love without conditions. Not DNA used as a leash." My mother opened her mouth to argue again, but then my father spoke. "Lauren." His voice was rough. I turned toward him. He stood there looking like he didn't know where to put his hands. His eyes were wet. I had never seen my father cry. Not once. "I'm sorry," he said. The words hit me like a heavy object. I stared at him. He swallowed hard. "I should have done better," he said. "I should have stood up for you. I knew what was happening. I knew you were being pushed aside, and I let it happen." My mother snapped at him. "Robert, stop." He shook his head slightly, still looking at me. "I was a coward," he whispered. "And you didn't deserve that." My chest tightened. Not with forgiveness. With recognition. With grief for the little girl who waited for those words and never got them. I nodded slowly. "I know, Dad," I said. He flinched like I'd slapped him with kindness. "I know you're sorry," I continued. "But sorry doesn't erase what you let happen." He nodded, wiping his face. "I know," he whispered. Margaret appeared at my shoulder, her hand resting gently on my arm. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Her touch said, "I'm here." My mother's eyes snapped to Margaret like a threat. "You," she spat. "You stole my daughter." Margaret's expression stayed calm. "I didn't steal anything, Mrs. Hayes," she said. My mother's voice cracked with rage. "Then what do you call this?" Frank stepped forward. He had been quiet all night, letting me lead. But now his voice carried through the space with a calm authority that made the air go still. "I think it's time for you to leave," he said. My mother turned toward him, offended. "Who are you to tell me that?" Frank didn't raise his voice. "I'm her father," he said. "Legally. And in every way that matters." My mother shook her head hard. You stole my place. Frank's jaw tightened. No, ma'am, he said. We didn't steal anything. You gave it away. The words landed like a slap. My mother went still. Frank continued, voice steady. 5 years ago, your daughter was sitting alone in a restaurant on Thanksgiving because her own family told her she wasn't welcome. My wife invited her to our table. We fed her. We talked to her. We treated her like she mattered. He stepped closer, not aggressive, just solid. Do you know what she told us that night? Frank asked. My mother's lips parted, but nothing came out. Frank's voice softened slightly. She said she couldn't remember the last time she felt wanted, he said. 26 years old. And she couldn't remember ever feeling like she belonged in her own family. Around us, guests had gone quiet. People were watching now. Not with gossip. With respect. With heartbreak. My mother's face twisted, trying to hold on to anger, but it looked weaker now. Frank turned toward the security team. Please escort them out, he said. My mother's head snapped back to me. Wait, she said, voice suddenly pleading. Lauren. I lifted my hand. Stop, I said. The room held its breath. I stepped forward until I was standing close enough to see every line on her face. Mom, I said quietly. I need you to understand something. Her eyes filled with something like hope. Maybe she thought I was about to take it back. I shook my head. I don't hate you, I said. She blinked, confused. I don't, I repeated. I've made peace with who you are. You're not a monster. You're just someone who couldn't love me the way I needed to be loved. My father sobbed quietly. My mother's face went stiff. But I've also made peace with who I am, I continued. And who I am is someone who deserves to be chosen. I stood straighter. Not as an afterthought. Not as a sacrifice. Not as the easy one who gets pushed aside. My voice stayed calm. You didn't choose me, I said. They did. I gestured toward Frank and Margaret. And I choose them. My mother's lips trembled. This is wrong, she whispered. No, I said softly. This is what happens when someone finally stops shrinking. I nodded toward security. Goodbye, Mom. Dad. My father looked at me one last time, eyes broken. My mother stared like she didn't recognize me. Then they were guided out. And when the doors closed behind them, something inside me unclenched. The guests started applauding. Not for the confrontation. For me. Ethan pulled me into his arms. You did it, he whispered. I exhaled. Yeah, I said. I did. And the rest of the night was ours. We danced until our feet hurt. We laughed. We cut the cake while everyone cheered. Frank tried to sneak a second slice and Margaret caught him. Ben fell asleep on a chair with frosting on his cheek. Sophie filmed everything. Melissa cried during the father-daughter dance even though she swore she wouldn't. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was missing something. I felt full. Because family isn't blood. Family is who shows up. And on the happiest day of my life, the people who showed up were the ones who truly loved me.